Folks, welcome back to the OVW Marathon here on WBNA 21. Thank you so much for kicking off your new year with us. And Brian Kennison with my curly-haired counterpart, Dance Stevie J. And that's right, the Brugetto is Batty.
And me.
Hollywood Haley J. Now look, folks, holidays are a time to be with the ones you love, the ones you care about. And three of my very best friends are here. We got Turbo, the Turbo Magnum.
That's Truth Magnum, idiot.
I know, I'm sorry, I got excited. He grabbed you.
When he spins, he is Turbo.
Well, this is Truth Magnum of the Outrunners.
That's weird. No,
Multiple-time heavyweight champion Cash Flow. The Brugetto is Batty. Hollywood Haley J.
Multiple two-time OVW Women's Champion.
I was getting to that when you interrupted me. So three of my best friends in Dance and Stevie J and guys.
Straight from the streets.
From the streets. And I just wanted to tell you, I bought a townhome on the streets. It's incredibly cheap. We'll talk about that later, though.
Pay attention. Why are we here?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, so what we're doing, guys, we're talking about matches. And more specifically, we're going to talk about one of the biggest matches in OVW history. We're going to talk about Cash Flow versus James Storm for
the biggest match in OVW history, regardless of what anybody says. A unification match. It was the OVW National Heavyweight title. It was the OVW Heavyweight title. Nobody wanted James Storm in the spot that he was in. I swear I get all jacked up when I think about it.
It's not our table. That's not our table. Let's just put that.
My foot was on there. Put it down.
You'll be okay.
Relax.
Sorry. I get excited when we talk about those championships.
I understand. Look, you're a man of passion. I get it.
It was great. I don't know what to say.
Take us in the mindset, Cash. What's going through the flow? What's going in your head when you're in there with one of the best around, James Storm, who's been all over the world?
What do you mean? What's going through your head? Win.
And tell the people.
Excited again.
Tell the people they got to spin to win. Isn't that right?
No.
This isn't Wheel of Fortune, guys. Sit down.
Brian, stop.
Stop it. Knock it off.
You know what would have been easier if you just cracked them with the soccer rock.
Okay.
I would love to do that.
You know what?
You have that soccer rocks?
Let's not bring the soccer rocks. Let's talk about the James Storm, though. You're right. You had to win. You had to win because James Storm was the top of our company and was just spitting all over, disrespecting the hard work that Haley J, the Truth Magnum, that Cash Flow put in week to week. Did that play into your need to win, to defend your? No one cares. To defend your company.
Absolutely played into it. Why wouldn't it play into it? I went into that match knowing that what I was doing not only for all the guys and gals in the back, but for all the fans of OVW that had constantly been disrespected by James Storm. I had no other choice. Every time James Storm knocked me down, I had to get back up. Every time he punched me in the face, I had to shrug it off. Every time he dropped me on my head, I had to get back up. I had to fight, and I had to become the OVW National and OVW Heavyweight Champion.
What did it mean for you guys to have someone who actually cared about the company reach that level?
Cash is somebody that's been a frequent visitor of the chop shop. Me and you haven't always seen eye to eye. But I have to give it to you. You beat him not only for yourself, but for all of us at the OVW locker room. And I just want to put it right there one time.
Whoa!
Wow.
That was too much power. Please don't do that again.
I'm getting too excited here.
That table
Y'all
is
calm me down.
Sit
Calm me
down.
down.
Sit
Calm me
down.
down. Calm me down.
Can we get water?
Yeah.
Get water.
Sure did. That's going to ruin your electrolysis appointment.
Sorry about your shoe, by the way.
It's fine.
Okay, so you can see the passion that runs through the veins of OVW. You can see the passion that runs through the superstars of OVW. Now I'm going to ask the question.
See the beauty.
Well, I'm going to ask the question everybody wants to ask. I'm going to ask the question that's burning on everybody's mind right now. Haley, how would you have beat James Storm?
How would I have beat him? Oh, I would have took him to the streets and then give him a good old mink with the soccer rock.
The old mink. You heard it from Hollywood Haley J.
Oh, the old mink. It's kind of how you spin.
Hit
It's
it
like this.
in the soccer rocks.
It's like a three-fire sort of thing with the soccer rocks.
It actually only takes one. You get one good hit, and then it busts open. So.
You know what, folks? We're going to explain the soccer rocks and the binks to Truth Magnums. Clearly, it's not translated. It's a streets thing. But you know what? We got more action, OVW action, more specifically to get into to kick off your new year properly. So let's go ahead and get back to the action. Folks, welcome back to the OVW New Year's Eve Marathon on WBNA 21. Brian Kennison here with my curly-haired counterpart, Dance and Stevie J. And we got Hollywood Haley J. The Brugetto is Batty, Queen of the Streets, Cash Flow, Truth Magnum. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about the streets, though, guys.
I am.
Finally,
I
it's about
graduated. I got
time.
my PhD in the streets. So let's get it.
It is the ghost of Christmas future of avenues, the streets. Now,
What,
Haley,
can you explain what the streets are?
The streets?
yeah,
Oh,
they don't
man,
get
just
it.
go
They don't get it.
outside. Pick one. I fit in all of them, so it doesn't matter exactly, but just go outside and you'll see what.
Straight from the streets.
now,
Are we on the streets now?
We are not on the streets. This is corporate, and we cannot do street or hood rat
you can
activity.
take your finger off the panic button there, Steve. Now, these guys are never going to understand the streets quite like you and I. There's just a certain bloodline that understands Bougetto, that understands it, and they're never going to. But Haley, you have rode the streets to multiple OVW women's championships, multiple times.
You almost said heavyweight.
I
You
almost
almost said heavyweight. You're not a heavyweight. What are you, like a bucko
Are
five?
you
dare
kidding
you.
me? I
I
have
dare
10-inch
you.
biceps. Let me show
I
y'all.
dare you.
Are you
See?
kidding?
Bajoosh.
So heavy is relative. And so, but her talent is what's heavy. Her talent
definition.
is what is heavy.
So
and Haley,
vascular.
the streets have gotten you to multiple OVW Women's Championships. So tell me what influence from the streets got you to your scratching and clawing, sometimes quite literally, to that accolade.
You either eat or get ate, and I ain't getting ate, so that's probably my biggest motto.
Please don't talk about food. Please.
We're not, big fella.
Okay, thank you.
I've been
Please
eating
don't
a
talk
few
about
times.
food.
I get it.
Did
You
you?
don't want
Have
me
you ever
to.
been eaten by cash flow? Have you ever been
If
shot
you
by
have,
cash
you would
flow?
know it.
I don't know how to answer that question or even where to go. Okay, you know what though? Hollywood Haley J, let's talk about some of your championship matches, but some
Yes!
things, actually, let's talk about something maybe a little more personal than championships. You got a lovely haircut right now.
Hair.
You know where I'm going now. You're
Take
seeing
it
where this
easy.
is.
I'm sitting
I'm-
next
Take
to her
it easy.
here.
It's a
Settle
sensitive
down.
thing.
Here, let's
It's-
switch
Settle
seats.
down.
You know, I'm going to stay
Settle
here.
You're not talking about when she cut my hair.
Steve wanted to bring it up.
You were not talking.
I
We are
never
not.
But with truth, hypothetically, there was someone who was
talking
Bougetto
about her.
facing someone who was named LAYLA Gray, and she was the unstoppable danger, and they had a hair versus hair match. Would you recall that matchup?
Would you not talk about that match, please? Back.
Sure. Now,
Okay.
well, maybe look at it this way. That
Okay.
was rough, but what about Haley? What about the redemption with your mother later on? I built something with your
Oh,
mom.
that
and-
felt good. Oh, that was real good.
Pro-
You know what? I got to crack. Have you ever got to crack your own mother with like a chair in the face? Boom!
Oh,
Oh,
my
that was so good.
I've done it, but
I
I
can
don't think
imagine.
that I
I'd
was.
like to crack. Oh, they're picking on me.
He's
they
bigger.
cut up my haircut.
But you're bigger than him. You're not supposed to pick
Yeah,
on people
Jack.
bigger
much
than you.
stronger than me.
You're
too.
right. You're at the thing. You know what?
It grew back, okay? It grew back.
And you know what? It grew back, and Haley, you grew as a person since then. We've seen you become the bully's bully. We've seen you push back against
Right.
those who would pick on those smaller than them. We saw you stand up to Freya, the freaking Slayer.
She's a giant, bro.
Bro.
She is.
Yeah, she's.
But you know what?
Because that's
Smack him.
I
Just
really
smack
do.
him.
Oh,
Just hit him.
What's wrong with you?
Reach across and
that's this. Okay, guys, look, I'm gonna be
Just
straight
hit
with all you guys. This was Al Snow's idea. He wants me to talk about this, and if I don't get this talked about, I'm not
I
gonna
feel
get.
like it was your idea. Yeah, and we're
See,
done. We're not talking
that's
about
what
it. Let's
happens.
go ahead and move to the next
That
thing.
what happens.
We're moving to the next thing.
I just can't take these
Rule
people
number one in the
anywhere.
streets,
Cut
when
the
someone
break
tells
line.
you to leave them
Anywhere.
alone and not talk about something, don't do it.
Have you not learned your
Take her
lesson?
Just
anywhere.
don't.
Oh,
She will backhand you.
I can taste the curb.
Is he really still
And it's,
talking?
it's also
I haven't
spinning.
heard hair yet, Haley. I haven't
Guys,
heard
we're gonna
hair
go
yet.
ahead and keep rolling on this.
Bleeding out
Oh,
your ear.
yeah, I feel it.
Oh, you
OVW marathon here in WBNA.
Do we have a medic in the
21.
house? Do we have a medic? Anybody? Somebody?
There's a doctor in the house.
It's hurting him.
Oh, it hurts.
Somebody?
Okay, all right. So I don't know why they put Brian and I in the middle of all of this, but I'm not here to ask questions. I'm just here to do interviews. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Crixus here, and then on the other side of the round table, we've got the Fallen,
Nah.
and then Dustin Jackson.
Nice to see you
Mr.
again,
Bro God
Crixus.
himself. Okay, and we're here today to talk about the match between Crixus and your former leader, Amon.
I think we talk about whatever the Fallen really wants to talk about.
Well,
the dude's got a head.
I don't-
Are we just gonna sit here and act like he doesn't have a head?
There's nothing to talk about anyway, is there? He turned up, never even had eyes in that match and still whipped him. Like it's coming your way, boys.
Okay, love it.
What did he just say? Someone get me some cue cards or something. give me the closed caption. Surprised you can still talk.
Lucky there's state laws here, son. Because I ain't going to jail for you today, but your time's going to come, boy.
Oh,
The tension is obviously very, very, very thick in the room, but I need, guys, we need, heavens. We need civility. We need civility. That's coming from me. You know I'm serious. Stop gagging.
Oh, he's serious. Oh.
Okay. The Fallen, how do you feel about that blindfold match, about your leader, Amon, and then what has become of him since?
Well, how do we feel?
Well, where is he? That's up here.
We
isn't it?
feel the same way every day. We feel violence. We feel chaotic. And we feel like it's about time for someone to fall.
Thank you, Dustin. Oh my God.
You guys, hey, come on. Hey. This is not our studio. These are not our tables. Fallen, you calm down. Crixus, you calm down, please, too. Dustin, okay. Stand right there, because I'm going to need you to stand there. Crixus.
Thank God for Dustin Jackson.
You clearly still have a hostility towards the Fallen.
Would you not? Would you not?
I don't, because I've never been in your position, but that's...
questions the guy, boy.
Crixus. You've been away months. They took months of your career away. Took months and put you on the shelf.
Not in that way. Hey, whoa, don't do it.
I know it's a stupid question to ask, but I gotta, and we know what you want to do to them. When you can get your hands on them again, what do the Fallen expect? What can the OVW audience expect?
Unadulterated violence. Every single one of you are gonna get it. You're gonna be 10 feet under here before I'm done here, boys.
Now, Crixus, we've seen nothing can stop the Scottish Juggernaut. We saw you fight without vision. We saw you fight in a blindfold match. How do you fight an evil you can feel but you can't see?
He can't fight an evil. He's going down. We beat him down once, twice, 3 times. How many times have we beaten you, Crixus? You come back for more. You're our favorite gift. We can't wait to knock you down again.
I really wish you guys wouldn't instigate right now. Come on.
You want to do it right now? You want to do it right now?
Come on. We will kick you out of this studio. I am not kidding. I am over this. I know you want to get your hands on him. I know you guys want to get your hands on him. But this is a New Year's Eve special.
For the families.
Come on, get it together.
I was hoping for champagne.
Now, you guys are clearly short a couple members. You're short a man who likes to paint his face and his chest red. A man who was your leader for a while. How does the Fallen continue without your demon magnate?
What you and all of you fail to realize is we don't need a leader, we don't need a guide. All we need is some soft chump to step in our way, and you'll find out exactly how the Fallen handles their business.
All right, folks, let's see exactly how the Fallen handled their business before. In a blindfold match, Crixus versus the Demon Magnate Amon. Folks, one heck of a match.
How you deal with little punks like that.
Folks, don't go anywhere. Stick around for this OVW Marathon on WBNA 21. You don't know what's going to happen next. Folks, welcome back to the OVW Marathon from New Year's Eve on WBNA. It's a pleasure to be here, and I promise you this next time it's going to be a little calmer than the last one.
Listen, boys, I'm sorry about that. Man, I'm sure you can appreciate I'm just back from Scotland, and these are amongst the first faces I see who injured me in the first place. I mean, I didn't actually know what you were thinking, having them on at the same time, but we'll talk about that later.
It was all
That was Steve's idea.
I'm sorry.
Now, the Scottish Madness came out a little bit. We saw that. We saw all throughout
Why's it
2020.
got to be Scottish madness?
I don't know why
From
you called
Scotland,
About-
because you're the Scottish War Machine, and I
you're
thought,
damn right.
I'm not saying you're mad because you're Scottish.
no, I was actually segueing to maybe have some Scottish bourbon together, but we'll segue out of that. We'll
Why
segue.
did you get us killed?
I want to have a drink. Oh yeah, there it is. You know what? I messed up, and that's okay.
What is you around here?
thought we were friends. All right. You know what? I'm going to talk to this guy who is my friend Dustin Jackson. Now, Dustin, you are a man who is familiar with cage matches.
Very.
We're going to talk about Jesse Goddard's Tony Gunn inside of an 18-foot steel cage. You were there that night. You saw Tony Gunn, a man you've known for almost a decade, fight tooth and nail against Jesse Goddard's. How did it feel to watch that sort of history unfold in a company that you've helped build on your shoulders?
Oh man, I mean, it was awesome, man, watching those two go out there and make history. Kind of sad the way it ended, you know, Shearer came in there and interrupted the match. I'm kind of sad, you know, that it had to end that way. I wish I would have had, you know, a clear-cut winner and the match wouldn't have been thrown out, but all aside, they made history, and, you know, it was a very, you know, proud moment for OVW.
Now, the Indian Lion turned a lot of heads at Christmas Chaos. It really shocked a lot of people, but I think what would be really shocking for you would be one of the first cage matches in OVW history featuring women's competitors. If you had an opportunity to step inside an 18-foot steel cage with someone on the OVW women's roster, who would Freya the Slayer want to slay?
Is there any question? Naturally, I'm going after the women's OVW championship. I've had it twice, and I think 2023 is going to be the year of Slay, starting with me regaining that title.
Now you're going to have that opportunity at the OVW Women's Nightmare Rumble on January 5th. That's going to be a huge opportunity. And Steve, let me ask you as a expert who sits
of
at
all
ring.
things.
See, he's making fun of you now too. That's how it feels. It doesn't feel good, does it? It
He's
feels.
laughing along.
Come on,
He's
expert. How many fights
laughing
you been
with
in?
me.
How many fights have you been in?
I've been hit in the face by
Zero.
HAILEY J.
How many fights you been in?
One.
Oh, so how you an expert? Tell me how you're an expert.
I got destroyed too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
By him?
She's got a heck of a right hand. You know, okay, let's talk about heck of right hands. Let's talk about that cage match. Crixus,
Yes, lots.
that steel cage, Jesse Goddard's, Tony Gunn. These men, you're a man who knows something about passion.
I'm
You
just
said-
happy I wasn't in there. That's all that is there. All I'm doing is playing ring of roses until I step in. Let me remind you, I am undefeated. You hear that? Undefeated. I've wrestled you as well, actually. You know. So all they're doing is doing this and then going in circles until I get in
something
there.
that
And then
appeared.
it's game over.
You getting heavy again?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, look.
I'm still thinking about his silly face over there. I still see him.
You talking about Freya?
No.
Hey, look, and Miss Slayer, we do apologize. Is it Miss Slayer? Yes, Miss Slayer. We do apologize that it smells a bit like brimstone over there. Our previous guests were a little more.
Haunted.
There we go. A little more demonic.
Possessed.
Now, guys, let's go ahead and look at 2023, the year that's coming up. We saw what happened at the end. We saw Shearer turning his back on the OVW faithful, helping out Jesse Goddard's. What do you guys see coming in 2023 for you, for Goddard's, for Gunn?
Knuckles to faces and heels
Feces.
to chins. You heard what I said. Don't try and get smart with me or I'll put those glasses into contact lenses for you, kid.
Dustin Jackson,
That's what I see.
what do you see happening in 2023? I'm going to turn my whole body here.
You know, I think that, you know, I'll be back in 2023. But, you know, I don't want to go out here. I don't want to be cocky. I want to be humble, you know, and I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to try the best that I can to be the best performer, be the best wrestler, and accomplish as much as I can. You know, that's all I can do.
That'll be good. Maybe I'll see you down there somewhere.
I think I beat you, Crixus.
Let's not. We don't need another studio fight.
No, you need to do it better than last time.
Oh boy.
Now, Freya, we know you got your eyes set on the OVW Women's Championship in 2023, so we're going to go and ask you what you thought about Shearer turning his back on the audience at the end of 2022.
At the end of the day, when we get inside the ring, you're fighting for yourself. No one else is going to have your back. So sometimes you have to do what has to be done. I really can't go judge anyone else's conduct. When I'm out there, I'm defending myself.
All right.
He did what he
Not
had
a
to
team
do.
sport. It is not a team
No.
sport. It's as simple as that. Every man for himself.
Every man for himself.
And woman.
He wasn't in the match. He wasn't in the match. He wasn't in.
You need to protect me.
Oh, you guys are out of your minds. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get back into this OVW marathon for New Year's Eve here on WBNA 21. Thank you so much for spending New Year's with us. There we go. Dancing in. Bringing in the new year. Gotta shake it up. Gotta shake it up. Oh, hey, guys. Welcome back. You've been hanging out with us all night for the OVW Marathon on New Year's Eve here at WBNA 21. And, folks, we are inching closer and closer.
That was bound to
New
happen.
Year's.
It's been a party, and that's quite the understatement with everybody that we've got with us here today.
Hey, let's go ahead and talk to him.
Yeah.
True Magnum.
It's 2023. It's time for a moment of truth. I want to give a big shout out to my main man, Turbo Floyd. I know you're out there on a yacht somewhere watching this. You're the muscle to my hustle.
Outrunners for life.
Yeah. See, he said he touched my shoulder afterwards. I'm an outrunner too. Hey, man, look, Braylon Slayer's here.
You're not an outrunner.
New Year.
Hey.
Hey.
Cash flow, Braylon
How are
Slayer.
you?
Guys, partying up for ready for New Year's 2023.
Absolutely.
Little
23, we'll do it.
No, not gonna choose me.
I'm in.
That's fair.
I've got a job to do here.
You have to be this tall
sorry,
to
sir.
get cheered.
Yeah, you have to be this tall to ride the ride.
You already cheered. Oh!
Start the
Didn't
party
nobody
early.
chop anybody. Nobody's chopping nobody. Chill out.
I got too much champagne. I'll vomit everywhere.
Breathe.
I could teach you how. You know what? We should move over this side of the room. We're gonna work on.
I've got this is an important thing I have to do over here.
This is the north side.
What was it?
The New Year. Necessary evil.
What did you do to them?
I didn't do anything. Look, Bash was here. Let's talk to Doug. Hey!
The machine is well oiled and fine-tuned. 2023, here we come.
Hey, Cricks is gonna give you a little drinky drink. There we go.
Cheers it up.
There we go.
Cheers, boys.
Guys, it's gonna be a big year. Doug, what do you see happening in 2023? What are you most excited for at OVW?
Well, I see the Nightmare Rumble starting first, right? I see the machine making a surprise entrance, winning it, and going on, becoming the Kentucky Heavyweight Champion, National Heavyweight Champion, and the Ohio Valley Heavyweight Champion. Then he wins the tag title, then he goes for the rush, and who knows, I might even go for the women's championship. You never know.
Hey, but Cricks is here. The man who's got his eyes on the Nightmare Rumble. Am I right, my man? Oh, you finish your drink first. Oh, that's a whole bottle.
He's done. He's done, sir.
Okay, Cricks is not feeling like talking, but guys, we're getting so close to New Year. Dustin Jackson, what do you get between us and the fall? And there you go. That's where you should be.
Hey, I got to get a little bit farther from these guys. How you guys
Good,
doing?
tell me about it.
You guys doing all right? Hey, Doug, come on, get in here, Doug. How you doing, man? You doing all right? We're having a good time on New Year's. Whoa!
We're getting there, guys. We are inching closer and closer. And what an odd group we are.
What is happening?
What is happening?
What happened to him?
Oh, he chopped my butt.
Who did?
He chopped my butt.
Who did?
Oh, they got straight bone.
No, I'm sorry.
That's how you ring
Where
in
did
the
it
new
come
year.
from?
That's how we do it. That's how. Oh, there's another butt poke. Okay, guys. We're not bringing it 2020. Okay. Guys, we're not bringing it 2023 on my butt. That's not what we're doing.
Hey, Steve!
I'm
Where you
Man to watch his own butt.
going away for? How you doing, Steve? What kind of countdown do we have, guys? Where are we at on the countdown? Oh my God! Can we get a 10-second countdown? I don't think he's been held as one. 10, that much. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,
Happy holidays, everybody. Welcome to 2023. Mike Rutherford here sitting down with wrestling legend Al Snow to talk a little bit about his life in wrestling, what he's got going on these days. Al, happy 2023 to you and happy holidays.
Happy 2023 to you, too.
I think people now, obviously any wrestling fan is familiar with you, your background. Now, you're here in Louisville, Kentucky. You've been with OVW for a long time. I want to talk a little bit about you. What led you to this place right now? But before we do that, the people back here, the people in town, they love a good stroking of the ego here. How much do you love Louisville, Kentucky? How much have you enjoyed being here?
I honestly, from the moment that I moved down here to Louisville, and that was in the early 2000s, I love Louisville because it has character. It has personality. It has unique areas all over the city. You know, you go into the Highlands, it's a completely unique area, has its own vibe, as opposed to if you go into Old Louisville, that's got a completely different vibe. If you go to J-Town, or if you go to Middletown, and it's not just a nondescript city. It actually has a feeling and a personality in each of those, in all those neighborhoods around the town. So, and it's just big enough to where there's tons of stuff to do, but it's not so big that you gotta like plan your life around traffic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I've really liked living here. And at one point when I worked for Impact Wrestling, they required me to move to Nashville, it's a beautiful city, but you know, when I was given the opportunity to no longer be in the office down there and wasn't required to live in Nashville, I moved right back to Louisville, came right back here.
We've seen OVW boom with you here. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and better and better.
I hope so.
Now, as we flip the calendar to 2023, I'm assuming exciting things on the horizon for Ohio Valley Wrestling.
I think so, yes. I think that this is going to be finally the breakout year. And, you know, honestly, I really believe with some opportunities I can't really talk about right now at the moment, but those will manifest. And when they do, I think it's going to take OVW and Louisville, the area of Louisville itself, to a whole another level. It's going to, you know, give us an opportunity to expose OVW and Louisville and the fan base that's always been here to the entire world.
Let's talk about Al Snow.
Okay.
I know it may be hard for you to do, but
yeah,
let's talk about Al Snow a little bit. Anybody who's been involved with wrestling for as long as you have has to it has to be a love affair. It has to be something that has been, you know, with you for a long, long time. Was young Al Snow a little entertainer? When did you first fall in love with wrestling?
Well, I grew up in Ohio, and during a period of time when, you know, wrestling was very regional, you know, and so that people understand, like, professional wrestling has had a national level back in the 30s, and then became regional. Then it became national again with the advent of television, and then it became regional again. And during that regional time was when I grew up, and it was in Ohio, and we had big time wrestling, and I was a fan right from the start as a child, of course. And then I was 14, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional wrestler when I grew up, and pursued it, and I became a professional wrestler at 18 years old. I've been doing it ever since.
At 18?
Yeah.
How did that happen? How do you become a professional wrestler at 18? You graduate high school, you leave, or you just bounce and say, it's time?
I wish it would have been that simple. Back then, the professional wrestling business was much more closed, much more secular, and I've been asked that question before, and I always explain that it was easier to be a made man in the mafia than it was to become a wrestler. Really, you know, it was kind of like the Masons. You had to know one, or you had to be born into it, and it was never an easy process to convince somebody to break you in, so to speak, into the professional wrestling business, because it was kind of like an apprenticeship. You were now responsible for whoever's brought you in and their reputation. And so, you know, that meant that if you messed up, they messed up. If you got punished, they got punished, and it would affect their livelihood, the way they would feed their families. So they were very reticent, and were not willing to just let anybody in. So it took a lot of convincing and a lot of, you know, talking and just really selling myself until I was able to finally get somebody to believe that I could do it.
Who was that person? I mean, was there somebody who really, like, opened that door for you, who just allowed Al Snow to break into the wrestling community?
It wasn't that simple. The story I've told a couple times was I didn't, you know, of course, it wasn't, this will be crazy for some people these days, but we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google, you know. So what I did as a kid was I would get the wrestling magazines, the old After magazines, they called them, and they would list, you know, where the promotions, what cities they were around the states where they resided. So, like Crockett Promotions was in Charlotte, North Carolina. AWA was in, you know, Minneapolis, Minnesota. WWF was in Stamford, Connecticut. And then I walked because I wasn't old enough to have a car and have a license, I walked to the local library, and they had business white pages for all of those cities. And I'd go down and I'd find Crockett Promotions, and I'd write it down, and then I'd walk home. And then I would call the office once a month, which my parents were like livid, because that was when we had long distance charges. And I would try to convince them to let me be a professional wrestler. And a lot of times they'd just hang up on me, but then it got to the point, because I'd do it every month, like clockwork, they knew who I was. And sometimes they'd set the phone down and see how long it'd take for me to hang up, or sometimes they'd stay on and talk to me. And I got a hold of, when I was in my senior year of high school, I got a hold of Crockett Promotions, and I got in contact with Gene Anderson. And he had told me they were going to have a tryout like that October of that year. And this was 2 or 3 months prior. And I was just about to graduate high school. And I went, great. And he's like, it'll be $250, which back then was, that was a lot of money. And I was like, all right, I'll be there. And he was like, sure, kid, click. And at the same time, the Distributive Educational Club, it was called DECA. It was part of the vocational wing of the school. They ran like a fundraiser, and Dick Afflis, who was the promoter in Indianapolis, Dick the Bruiser, more known as, he ran the show. And one of the wrestlers, Jim Lancaster, was kind of going into semi-retirement, had been on the road for 10 or 15 years, and he lived just about an hour away from where I lived at the time in Lima, Ohio. And he gave him a business card because he was starting his own promotion, and to the teacher. And I found that out, so immediately I went and got in touch with the teacher, got the business card, called him up, and I met him at a McDonald's. Here's this man and I knew it was him. I had never met him, but I knew it was him. Just like 365 pounds, sitting in a booth at McDonald's and eating a hamburger. So I met him and had a conversation with him, and he basically just shut me down. And I told him, I said, well, I'm going to Charlotte for a tryout with the Andersons. He said, well, I worked there, make sure you tell him I said hi. I went, okay. That did nothing. So I went to Charlotte, North Carolina. I basically, now these days I sold my car so that I would have enough money to be able to afford a bus ticket. Now, take that in. Yeah. I could have just drove my car. It didn't occur to me at the time when I was 17. And now, as I've gotten older, I went, God, I was dumb. That was not smart. And I sold my car, and I took a Greyhound bus ride. It was a 24-hour bus ride. I'll never forget that. And if you want cruel and unusual punishment, stick somebody on a Greyhound bus. Let me tell you. I can understand why that guy in Canada went crazy and attacked the passengers. And I went to Charlotte, and I took a 5-mile walk out to where the old Coliseum was. And there were probably 30 or 40 of us that started, and they literally tortured us for probably 3 or 4 hours, broke my nose, beat me up, and sent me home. And when I got back, Jim had told me to call him and let him know how things had went. Well, what had transpired was he was running some shows, and he had, at the time, there was a very popular, good-looking young guy that everybody wanted to use that worked for, it was Dick the Afflis' son-in-law. His name was Spike Huber, and he was a big draw in the Midwest. And Jim had ran a show, wanted to book Spike Huber. It was agreed to. He was allowed to come. And then Dick sent him out to St. Louis for Sam Muchnick. So Jim thought, I'm going to get a crew of guys that I can control. And so he changed his mind and decided that he'd be willing to train me. And then it wasn't simple after that. You're like, oh, well, it's done.
Yeah.
Well, now we have to find a place to do it. So I reached out. I'd graduated high school. I reached out to our athletic director, asked him if we could use the wrestling mats. It was probably in December now of the year. And I said, you know, can we use the wrestling mats? Because the wrestling season was on when they're done with practice. Oh yeah, you can do that. So show up the first day. I didn't realize there had been a snowstorm. The school there was no school that day. So I walk around the building and I find a door that's open. I go in the building because it's right near where the gymnasium's at, and set off the alarm, apparently, the silent alarm, and police show up with guns drawn, screaming at me to get down on the floor. Well, suffice it to say, we couldn't practice there anymore because the athletic director got called at like 9 o'clock at night. So I found a community center and convinced the executive director of the community center that I would teach the youth how to wrestle, which I didn't know how to, if they would let us use the facilities to train there. So he did, and I had my first match in May 22nd of 1982 was the very first match I ever had in Springfield, Ohio. So
you had this dream. You grow up, you sacrifice things. Some of you didn't even really need to sacrifice. You make the sacrifices, you break in, you finally get your first match. The early years, I think anybody who breaks into an industry will tell you, there's there are a few moments where you're like, is this really for me? You grew up loving this. Even in those early years, was it something that you maintained the love for? Or was there a moment where you were like, maybe I made a mistake?
I always maintained the love, but and it was hard, because what some people don't understand about the entertainment industry, not just professional wrestling, but sporting athletics, music, acting, you name it. It's not like a regular employment, meaning you're not entitled to get paid, and that I think a lot of people enter into this world thinking that it's the same as if you work at, a steel mill or at Walmart, where you go into it as an employee and you've made an agreement that, hey, I'm gonna come into your work, I'm gonna perform this task, and you're gonna pay me this much per each hour that I'm here. It doesn't work like that. And you're only worth what it is that will motivate people to come, as many people will come to see you, do your job. And at that time, my name wasn't even on the poster. I was either plus one other match or additional all-stars or other exciting bouts. So I always got the last share of whatever the gate was. And there were lots of nights like I didn't have money, to really eat. But that was why I invented the barbecue, which back then they didn't have microwaves in the gas stations, and not like they do now. Because I get excited, like Sheetz or Wawa or Buc-ee's. Oh my God, it's heaven for me because they got I would have lived like a king back then if I knew gas stations had good food. They had these Stewart sandwiches that were cold. They were terrible. They were like 50 cents.
There you go.
Maybe some of them were 35. But they were disgusting and they were horrible cold. So I got a Boy Scout mess kit, which are basically 2 metal plates, and you have a clamp on them with a wing nut, and then I got some muffler tape, and I would strap that to the manifold of the car on the engine of the car, and then I'd stick the sandwich in there. I'd drive down the road and I'd heat it up.
Lavish.
And I learned you could do that also with Vienna sausages and Spam and other tasty treats.
So is there ever a moment you're doing this? I mean, you're heating up
Not
gas
at
station
all.
food in your car.
Not at all.
There's never a moment where you're like,
Not one.
maybe this
and
isn't right
now
enough.
when I look back, it really was. It was an awesome time. It really was, But I got that frustration, I think, around year 10 or 12, where I was like, all right, something's got to give, something's got to break. I mean, I gotta go to the next level, and then that was where I got an opportunity to go to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and through that opportunity, I met, I was seen by both WWF at the time, Vince McMahon, and WCW, Eric Bischoff, and literally both at the same time Eric asked me to come to Atlanta to do a dark match, is kind of like what we call a tryout match. And then, literally picked up the phone the very next day, and Jim Ross had contacted me when they wanted me to come to Stanford. And the difference between the two companies was dramatic. I mean, it was crazy. You know, in the sense of they asked me to come down to Atlanta. I was like, great, fly down to Atlanta. Nobody speaks to me when I land. I've got to find my way over to the CNN, to the hotel. I got to find out I have a room. I got to call their office finally at around 5 in the afternoon to say, where do I need to be the next day? They couldn't be bothered. Meanwhile, the very next week, I fly to LaGuardia. There is a guy at the base waiting at the end of the escalator with a sign for me, takes me out to a limo, puts me in the back seat, drives out to Stanford. I meet with, at the time was J.J. Dillon, was the head of talent relations, and they give me a tour of all of Titan Towers. They take me over to the TV studios, give me a tour of everything, and then I meet with Vince for like 3 hours. And in his office, offers me a contract right then and there. And I'm like, well, I've told Eric Bischoff I'd wait and, and see what they have to offer. And he goes, you owe it to your family, look at both, let me know. But, after a couple weeks, I never heard from, WCW, and the answer was pretty simple at that point. It was, go to WWF. And the difference in the companies, the way that they handled things was amazing.
I got to ask you, talking about meeting with Vince McMahon. Keep in mind, we're on TV here.
Yes.
Best Vince McMahon story that is suitable for air. That you can tell.
I got one.
Okay.
I've always been kind of ahead of the curve because I was getting canceled before cancel culture was a thing. So when my action figure first came out, Jack's Pacific had put a small, where you just popped a Barbie doll head off of it in the package. And I've never referred to head for anybody that's not out there, that's not familiar. I was supposed to be schizophrenic and believe the head actually spoke to me, and I carry it around. It was a beautician's mannequin head that I interacted with as if it was real, like it was live. And so I'm in Philadelphia. We're going to do Raw, the television show, that night, and I'm at a gym, and the top 3 news stories on TV were in no particular order. And when I'm telling you, Mike, on every ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, every affiliate there in Philadelphia was the mayoral proceedings, the mayor's race, the Bosnian peace process, and my action figure in Walmart had been banned. And the reason it had been banned was because a woman, and I think her name was Cheryl, and I only just found this out because I was doing a radio interview, and the DJ literally lived in Kennesaw, Georgia, near Kennesaw State University. He was attending college at the time, and she was a professor of all things of communications. She went into Walmart, saw my action figure, and without doing any homework or research or anything like that, just assumed that it was a female head, and wrote a letter to the Atlanta Constitution saying that, and I quote, that my action figure was a training manual for future spousal abusers. And so Walmart, the Atlanta Constitution, because wrestling was really popular, very mainstream, printed the letter. And then Walmart, in a panic, banned it. I'm still on my action figures number 5 on the banned list of items that they will not sell that they feel are a threat to the community. And actually, pregnant Barbie's number 1. So such a slut. It's
a great list.
I know. I think it's like 21 or 22. Now you can still go to Walmart and buy a hunting rifle and a knife to dismember your victim, but you can't buy my action figure. The point of all the story is, I walk into the arena that day in Philadelphia, and Vince is down the hallway, and he's talking to one of the writers, Tommy Blodgett, and he turns and he sees me. His face lights up, and he's, "Al, what have you been up to, pal?" And I go, "Vince, I have no idea. This caught me out of left field." And he just stopped, turned around, and walked right back and started having a conversation with the writer again, as if I didn't exist. I stood there what just happened? like if I go to you and I go, hey Mike, how you been? And you go, I've been, and I just turn and walk away, like, I don't care. You know, I was like, who starts the conversation and then just walks off?
Unreal.
And so I said, well, I'm gonna go to the locker room, Vince. If you wanna come down and finish the conversation you just started, let me know. I'll be around all day. And never said another word to me.
Not one?
None. Just acted like I did not exist.
Wow, I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a fascinating man. He really
Fascinating
is.
is one word. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your time in WWE/WWF. I think that's where you become mainstream. It's where a lot of people find out about you. If you, I mean, obviously any business relationship, any employment is going to have ups and downs.
Sure.
If we're talking about the ups, what's the highest high for you during that time of your life?
I just, people ask me that all the time, and I honestly, it's probably just the fact that I was able to do what I love to do, and just focus on that, and have an opportunity to really go out there and just, you know, create moments for an audience. You know, everybody goes, what, you know, was there a favorite match? Was there a favorite moment? I'll tell you, every time I walk through that curtain, no matter the size of the audience, it's probably one of the most awesome experiences you can ever have. I mean, there's no way that I can possibly quantify it in terms that somebody can relate to, other than imagine being a high level, like an NFL or an NBA or a Major League Baseball player, and the experience, the rush of not only playing in front of thousands of people, but you got the game-winning touchdown. You hit the game-winning basket. You hit a home run in the World Series, and you get to relive that every time you walk out there. You know, and you get to be an athlete of that level. You also get to be a rock star. You get to be a superhero. You get to be all these things all at once. You know, and there are thousands of people. Well, even when there's just hundreds, it's just an experience that you can't. And you get to control it. Like when you go out, you're the guy, you're the person who directs the ship. And if you get good at it, you can literally make thousands of people stand up. You can make them sit down. You can make them cry. You can make them scream. You can make them laugh. You can make them cheer. And you can make them do it when you want to. And it's an incredible experience.
So you go from a kid who has the cops called on you the first time you're trying to train,
right,
to a young professional driving around, heating up Spam on your car, and now you're in the pinnacle of the sport.
Right.
Is there a moment where you reflect back where there's kind of a pinch me where you're like, I did this. This was all
I do
worth it?
now. When you're in it, and I think you probably relate because you're in a similar field. I mean, because you're only as good as the last thing you did.
Sure.
You know, especially in a place like WWE, the competition and the pressure and the stress is so high. And I don't think people realize just how really competitive it really is. That you're so focused on, I gotta keep going up to bat, and I gotta hit, the next swing has got to either be, it's got to be a home run or it's got to be a triple. We start hitting doubles and singles, people are going to start to, you know what I mean? God help you if you strike out, you know, or you walk. I mean, now they're really going to start to create a perception that you may not be able to deliver the goods anymore, you know. And the further you go up, the more that pressure becomes. So when you're in it, you never really get a chance to sit back and reflect. And now when I'm, you know, a little more distance and a little more time, I have a lot more perspective, and I'm very proud of what I did. And you know, I'm just a kid that I tell people all the time, I try to encourage them to pursue their dreams, because, you know, and not take no for an answer, you know, because I came from a town in the middle of nowhere and had no attachment to wrestling, had no direct into it, you know, and was told by my family and friends and everybody, you know, this is never going to happen, you know. And I've been on every continent on the planet except for Antarctica. I've been in at least 42 different countries, and made my living doing this for the last 40 years. I've been, you know, I've wrote a book about my memoirs and experiences. I've been in comic books, have action figures, video games, all because I decided to become a professional wrestler. And I've gotten, you know, like this. I would not be sitting here today talking to you if it weren't for the fact that I made a decision to go do it.
Have you ever explored, I mean, this has been your dream since you were 14 years old.
Yeah.
When you get out of actually wrestling, you do Tough Enough, you do OVW. This has been your entire life almost.
Yeah.
What would Al Snow have been doing if it wasn't for professional wrestling?
I have
no idea?
I have no idea. I really don't. The two questions that are the hardest to answer is, what would you do if you weren't a professional wrestler? And I'm like, I honestly have no idea. I don't know. I really don't. And the second one is, why did you want to do it in the first place? And I can tell you, I don't know. I knew that it was the thing that I wanted to do. And I've been blessed. I mean, I've been very lucky that I've been able to do it for as long as I've gotten to do it. So, you know, and now I'm involved, you know, I'm part owner of OVW and, you know, trying to create a platform that allows, you know, twofold, allows the next generation of talent to have a place, a real solid platform with standards and professionalism of teaching the skills to give them the best opportunities to take advantage of anything that comes their way to make a career and live their dreams. And then a platform that for people that have been on a higher platform, a much larger level, WWE or et cetera, to have a place, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that opportunity is going to come to an end for them, to have a place to return, reinvent themselves, and potentially get another chance to get a second run in one of those areas again.
You've been here, we're talking about the boom of OVW, and certainly we're expecting bigger and better things in 2023. What are you most proud of from your time here with Ohio Valley Wrestling?
I think what I'm most proud of, honestly, is the talent, the wrestlers themselves, and the stories that we've been able to tell, and the emotional connection that we get from the audience when it culminates and we see the story come together. We've told so many really good and entertaining stories, which sounds kind of weird that, you know, you're using, but that's really what wrestling is. It's the art of physical storytelling within the context of a competitive situation. And we've been able to really tell some remarkable, you know, stories in the last few years, and they're just getting better.
Last thing,
Sure.
2023.
Yeah.
What are you hoping for? What are you hoping to avoid?
Well, what I'm hoping for is to just grow OVW that much more, really put OVW, and honestly Louisville, because Louisville's had a tradition of professional wrestling from the 30s, from the Allen Athletic Club on, you know, and I really want to make it a prominent center again for professional wrestling and sports entertainment. And what I want to avoid is to not to succeed, for us to fail. I want to just grow the audience, and I want, you know, for as many people as possible from as many different places around the world to see the talent and the fan base that we have here.
Any personal resolutions?
Do
you do that?
No, I don't, not really. No, I think, well, you know, I started a comedy act that I now do on the side. So, yeah, I'm going to continue to pursue that, and we'll see how that goes.
No cops called for training?
Not yet, no, no. And nobody's throwing vegetables while I'm on stage, so I assume that, you know, they think it's okay.
Where can people see you do that?
I go around the country. In January 14th and 15th, I'm in San Diego and in Burbank, California. So I'm going out to, you know, West Coast, and then in April, I'm going to go over to Washington, D.C. to a comedy club there. So they seem to enjoy it, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's Al Snow. You know him. You love him. You may see him on a comedy act coming to Netflix pretty soon. Al, thanks so much for spending some time with us. Happy 2023 to you.
Happy 2023 to you too. And thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate the time.
Of course.
All right.